Hi there. It's been a little bit longer than I wanted it to be, at least. But I've been doing some digging. I've been looking pretty hard, going through eBay lots and garage sales and pretty much anything else I could use to find old used cards. And I have found at least one copy of every single Beast card ever released for Inscryption. This took a lot of extra work and more money than I care to admit, but I think, at least, I have every single copy. It's a little hard to know because, again, if you watch my last video, this card game isn't super well documented online. But from what I can find, this is it. There's 53 cards in total. There's 7 rares, 3 talking cards, and then the rest are... the last 43 are common cards and Squirrel. But I'm not going to go through every single card individually because that would be a lot. So I'm just going to go through a couple of my favorites. Personally, at least. I'm a little biased for some of these, but, you know, whatever, right? So one of my first favorites is Ant Queen. I adore this card. I'm incredibly biased to bug decks, personally, but Ant Queen really just helps make them work. Its power is equal to however many cards else on the field have Colony, and whenever it gets played, you get to search out a Worker Ant from your deck, meaning you just get another Colony card into your hand. Which means with at least proper prep, you can get 3 cards on the field and just suddenly be dealing 9 damage to your opponent, which is incredibly scary, especially since ants are not frail. I adore this card. This card's one of my favorites, just because of its sheer utility and potential power. Another really good card, Cockroach. This card is really good sacrifice fodder. In a longer form game, you are going to be generating a lot of bones ultimately, and if your deck doesn't purely, focus on playing cards with a bone cost, then Cockroach is an incredibly reliable card to just throw in your deck, because you can play it for free most of the time, essentially, since it'll most likely be the only bone cost card you have in your whole deck. Sacrifice off of it, add it back to your hand, play it again, sack, and repeat, allowing for some ridiculous combo plays. Cockroach is an amazing card for that, and if there was a competitive scene anymore, you would see this thing played a lot. It's really good. Another really good card, I think at least. I maybe am biased, but it's also really rare for some reason. It was really hard to find any pictures or proof of this card out there. Salmon. Something that, personally at least, I think gets a bad rep is Waterborne. I think it's actually a really, really useful sigil, at least in PvP play, because there's not a lot your opponent can really do to get rid of these things, and Salmon especially is a monster because of it, because it deals enough damage to kill most other 2-cost cards, or even smaller, cheaper cards, and it's constantly moving. Your opponent will have a very hard time effectively playing around this thing. It makes it incredibly annoying for your opponent. I love him for it. He's just a devious little monster. One of my favorites. Grizzly. I just think his card art is good. That's the whole reason. I just love how he looks. Just purely based on that. He's just a big beat stick. He just hits pretty hard and is hard to kill. But I mean, otherwise, he's nothing really special. He's just a big, cool card. Great White is kind of in the similar vein, except it's Waterborne. Instead of having a lot of health, it trades it out for being just really hard to hit. To balance that out, it's very frail, with only 2 health, meaning 2 porcupines kills it off pretty fast. But also, its card art is, in my opinion, some of the best in the game. The way that it looks, the color splatter that's on it, God, it adds so much to it. This thing is one of my favorites to just look at. It's such good card art. This, hands down, is one of my favorites just based on looks. Oh, Another really rare one, Squirrel Ball. Unfortunately, as useful as I wish this thing was, it struggles just because it's a huge target when it's on the field and doesn't have any way to really defend itself, but it essentially has Sprinter, where at the end of your turn it moves to an adjacent empty space, assuming there is one, but it plays a squirrel behind it whenever it moves, which can make for some really big combos with it if your opponent just sort of lets you, but they probably won't. As much as I wish this card was useful, it unfortunately isn't. In terms of common cards, those are some of my favorites, but that's not the exciting stuff. The exciting stuff is in this little pile right here. This pile of cards is all the rare cards. At least one copy of every single rare card for the Beast archetype, as well as some other little special cards that I found that I think are neat. Starting with Gek. Classic. He's kind of a joke card, honestly. He's just a free 1/1 that doesn't really do anything, but I love him, and he's great. There's really not much to say about him. He's just Gek. Then there's Mantis God, who is terrifying for good reason. Essentially just dealing 3 damage for the cost of 1 blood is horrific. Personally, I think Mantis has more utility than Mantis God. That might be controversial to say, but Mantis God is a horrifying presence on the board, but it's a lot easier to kill because it's dealing damage directly cost from it. But then you have this one. This one's really rare for some reason, Hrockall. I think his card art is absolutely stellar. I love how this thing looks. Unfortunately, it's not super good for Beast, because it primarily benefits energy decks, technology-focused ones. So, in practice, for a Beast-centric deck, this is just River Otter, but cooler looking. Which is fair, River Otter's not a bad card to have in a deck, but Hrockall, unfortunately, isn't super useful in most decks, but God, he looks cool. And then, I believe, yeah, I have 2 more. Then Urayuli, who is kind of the boss monster of the Beast archetype. He's just enormous, but he's super resource intensive. A 7/7 that... if this thing gets on the field, your opponent will try to kill it, but unless they have Death Touch, this thing wins. It's just hard to get out. It either costs you an entire board wipe, or Black Goat and something else, but if it gets out, it's really nice. And then... finally, for the normal ones that I have, is Mole Man, who's just a defensive wall. It exists solely to take as many hits as possible for as long as possible, and it's incredibly cheap, which makes it super good at that. Its art's pretty neat. I like it. I don't know why it has a shovel, but I'm not going to complain about it, because I think it looks cool. But now we get to the fun stuff. Let me put him back here. This is the really exciting stuff. Not only did I get a couple of the rare cards, I also got some foil cards. These are not very common, but I have a handful of them, including the last 2 rares that I didn't get commons of, or I guess standard art of, surprisingly. I got foil Gek, foil Mantis God, foil Hrockall, and then we have our good friend Packrat here. Packrat's an interesting card. It's one of the only cards in the game that actually lets you draw from your side deck whenever it's played, unlike pretty much every other draw card, which draws directly from your main deck, which can make it an incredibly useful card for weird combos. Packrat's really good, just generally anyways. You'll see this card a lot in play. And then one of my personal favorites also, Amalgam. He's just big. He's a 3/3 that only costs 2. He's horrifying on the board, and he just looks fucking wild. He just looks crazy, and I love him for it. And then, I also got foil Squirrel Ball. I didn't know that they made foils for common cards. I didn't think that existed, but I'm so happy I got this. This is incredibly rare. And then the ultimate just piece of stuff I got out of this were these 3 cards. I got a set of holographic talking cards from the Beast archetype, which is stupid rare. Like, this is a crazy find. But, God, it's so cool. And it's the fact that I have a set of it is what makes it even better. All 3 of these, it's so nice to see. Stunted Wolf, you know, Stinkbug, and then Stoat. These cards are great. These cards are really, really cool. But, yeah, that's what I've been up to over the last, month, basically. Now that I have enough cards to actually do this, I I probably will create some, like, examples of play, maybe an actual game, go through kind of how the rules of this game works. Plus, I've got a couple other cards from other archetypes, but I kind of want full sets of them before I show those off, so I might have some things in store. If you're curious on keeping up with that, obviously, subscribing is a great way to do it, or my Twitter account, which is going to be linked in the description. Follow me there. I will update as things happen. But anyways, I just wanted to show these off. I thought they were really cool. I appreciate you watching this far. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.